Superhero movies are everywhere these days. There's content being pumped out left, right, and center. A new superhero movie or show feels like every month. Some of it is good and some of it isn't. However, today I want to look at the great stuff. The movies that leave us in awe, the movies that inspire us, that excite, that push the medium of cinema forward. So join me as we take a look at the best comic book movies. Speaking of the best, I want to highlight why I wanted to make this video in the first place. Within reason, I honestly feel like the movies we're given today are soundstage, or in this case, volume stage garbage. Sure, there are some exceptions like I just said, but most of these movies feel tired, uninspired, SNL sketches with copy and paste heroes that play it safe, movies that don't dare to take risks anymore. I think the superhero fatigue that people are starting to feel now are not because of the quality of the films, but because of the lack of innovation in the genre. So naturally, that's made me want to look at a time before, when these movies excited me, when they were good, great even, when directors weren't constrained to a vision of a studio, but their own, when James Gunn introduced us to the bountiful energy of the Guardians of the Galaxy or the Suicide Squad.
Oh, yeah.
When Tim Burton expanded on his gothic depiction of the Caped Crusader in Batman Returns, or when Taika Waititi livened up the Thor franchise with Thor Ragnarok. These movies had an incredibly strong creative vision, and nobody sells that better than Guillermo del Toro's foray into the Lovecraftian myth of Hellboy. Based on the Mike Mignola comic, Hellboy was adapted by Guillermo del Toro, known for his love of horror, myth, and fantasy. Del Toro, off the back of Blade 2, gave a movie of whimsy and myth, but also a touching character drama. A movie with an admittedly forgettable POV character, but a movie that excites nonetheless. Sure, it dives into similar themes presented in X-Men, that of prejudice and being ostracized, cast out for their nature, but its mythological roots help separate it. That mythology is taken even further in the sequel. This strong sense of artistic direction is attributed to Del Toro. It has his creative stamp all over it. Amazing practical monsters, a keen control for its color palette, a pervading sense of fantasy and wonder that is grotesque and mesmerizing.
Behind this door, a dark entity. Evil, ancient, and hungry.
Yeah. Speaking of the X-Men, it goes without saying that the X-Men have been a big part of the last 2 decades of superhero cinema. They kicked things off alongside Spider-Man with the release of X-Men, followed it up with an amazing sequel that expands on existing characters whilst introducing us to new ones, even sings return to the franchise with Days of Future Past slaps, the movie having some amazing action sequences. But for me, I think the best X-Men movie we've had to date is X-Men First Class.
You're serious?
First Class to me is the X-Men done right. Montages of the X-Men training? Well, here it bolsters the story and the characters. Super suits designed for missions.
What would you prefer? Yellow spandex?
Yeah, I would, thanks Scott. The ideologies of Magneto and Professor X? Here we see that come to be. It's really just great.
We have it in us to be the better man.
We already are.
Regardless, that's all the superficial, surface level stuff. First Class is able to do so much right, whether it's pulling ideas from Jekyll and Hyde or Frankenstein.
Let's just say I'm Frankenstein's monster.
Bolstering all too familiar themes of intolerance and prejudice found in the X-Men movies, or the focus of the brotherly story of 2 men with opposing worldviews. The movie is exciting through and through, perfectly acted, and at its core understands the ensemble nature of the X-Men better than any other X-Men movie that has come before. Because say with me now, the X-Men is not Wolverine and friends. First Class is dialed into its message, making a poignant point about prejudice by the movie's end. That being said, what happened to Darwin? The movie is set during the Civil Rights Movement, and they killed off the one black guy in the movie. To make it even worse, get this, his power is not dying. And he died.
Whoa, all right. Jesus, man, you are killing me.
Anyways, now I want to switch over to animation. I think the medium of animation is underserved in lists like this. You have some real gems. The surprisingly good Planet Hulk movie, which is pretty much Gladiator in space, but with the Hulk. You also have First Flight, probably the best Green Lantern movie we've gotten to date. Its visceral action excites, but its twists and turns keep you hooked, culminating in one of the most satisfying final battles I've ever seen. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the existential themes presented in Crisis on Infinite Earths, or the very personal tales of Batman Under the Red Hood or Year One. But for me, and for most people, when they think 2D, they think none other than the Mask of the Phantasm. Batman Mask of the Phantasm is a no-brainer to anyone who's seen the movie, but here's why. This movie takes what is so interesting about the character, his guilt, his misery, and inverts it. In other words, it asks, can Batman be happy?
But I didn't see this coming. I didn't count on being happy.
It's a movie that dares to expand the character in a way we've never seen before. We have a villain that mirrors our hero in just so many ways.
They took everything, Bruce. My dad, my life, you.
A hero that just wants to be happy, and a Joker that smiles in the face of that happiness, gleefully standing in the way of it. It's a movie that is actually Batman focused for once. Sure, other Batman movies might tackle ideas or themes in more nuanced ways, but this movie does more to develop Bruce's character than any other. It's a love story, an origin story, a story of guilt, of sadness. It asks, can Batman have a happy ending? Is this the life he's destined to live? And for that, I think it supersedes all others. Speaking of Phantasm somewhat being an origin story, I thought we'd take a look at that next. The origin story is what most people are used to at this point. How did our character become the hero we know them to be? What events led them to heroism? Now this is expertly done in the first Iron Man, a character overcoming his hubris and righteousness and stepping up to the plate to become the hero he needs to be.
I am Iron Man.
There's other really tight packages like Raimi's first Spider-Man movie. Iconic as ever, the movie delivers great characters, a compelling story, and a brilliant final fight that still to this day might be the most brutal hero-villain showdown I think we've ever seen. However, to me, the best origin story, the best tale of a character becoming a hero is 1978's Superman the movie. It's hard to name an origin story more iconic than the 77 Superman movie. Burnt into the collective conscious, this movie has stood the test of time through its unbeatable theme by John Williams, its iconic photography captured by DP Jeffrey Unsworth, who passed away not long after this movie was made, I might add. The movie might seem a little dated by today's standards, a little slow, but it holds your attention better than any other origin, and that's attributed to the chemistry of the cast. Christopher Reeve's country boy earnestness in Clark being balanced out by the city cynicism of Margot Kidder's Lois Lane. Gene Hackman eats it up as a villain ripped straight out of a comic book, and Marlon Brando's ethereal presence as Jor-El is great too.
Even in the face of our death, the richness of our lives shall be yours.
This movie is just so iconic. It's pretty much paved the way for every Superman comic and movie that has come out since. Aesthetics like the House of L being rolled into the comics, or even the Fortress of Solitude, everything since has tried to live up to or run away from this movie, and for that reason, it's not just the definitive Superman movie, but the definitive origin story, period. Now, not everything has to be about Marvel and DC. There's plenty of comic book properties that exist outside of those two companies, adaptations that have wowed audiences all the same. You could look at the futuristic totalitarian tale of V for Vendetta, the dystopian punk of 2012's Dredd, Matthew Vaughn's real-world hero in Kick-Ass, his attempt with Spies and the Sort with Kingsman, or Zack Snyder's iconic styling in 300, but to me the best non-Marvel or DC comic book movie is Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Come on man, this movie is just so rewatchable, quotable, enjoyable, it's everything. The performances are killer, the music slaps, the jokes land, the action is stylish, the editing is slick, and it's Edgar Wright performing at his peak. The movie is just so its own. I don't think the genre has seen anything like it since. Here, Scott Pilgrim embraces what it means to be a comic book. This is not our reality, and it's never trying to be. It's got a unique energy, style, transitions, it's over the top in all the best ways, yet despite that remains completely focused on its story. A character learning to get a life, and for that reason, Scott Pilgrim rounds out number 6. For number 5, we're looking at Batman. What is the best Batman movie? Not what is the best movie with Batman in it, because if that's the case, it'd likely be The Dark Knight. But, to repeat, what is the best Batman movie? You could say Batman Begins in that case, being more of a Batman movie than almost any other. It's got the cave, the presence, a sexy Batmobile.
I gotta get me one of those.
It's pretty much the definitive origin story for the hero as well. You could say the OG, but I don't think Burton really cared for the source material. You could say Under the Red Hood, an animated epic that recounts one of Bruce's greatest failures, a journey through his past, his foes, and his allies to tell a deeply personal tale. But to me, the best so far has been the 2022 Batman movie, simply titled The Batman. Yet, that being said, I don't feel qualified to talk about it. The movie has so much going on, so I want to hand it over to someone who knows this movie inside and out. Owen from OwenLikesComics.
But when that light hits the sky, it's not just a call. It's a warning.
2022's The Batman is a great movie, but an even greater Batman movie. As someone that's loved almost every on-screen rendition of the Caped Crusader, but had to accept their frequent deviations from the source material, this film feels like the closest thing of seeing a Batman comic come to life that I've experienced. From its opening sequence, the world that Matt Reeves crafts feels like a real lived-in Gotham City, one heavily reminiscent of comics like Frank Miller and David Mazzucchelli's Batman Year One. It's dark, bleak, and soul-destroying, but it's in these horrors that a new hero emerges. While it feels like each subsequent modern Batman has attempted to emphasise the dark portion of the Dark Knight more and more, Robert Pattinson's version of the character does continue this theme, but in an interesting and unique way. Sure, when we're introduced to his Bruce Wayne, he feels more Travis Bickle than charming socialite, but it's through his journey into the depths of corruption at Gotham's core that he's transformed from the manifestation of vengeance to a full-fledged superhero. Although there's truly no shortage of options when it comes to picking a favourite on-screen Batman, it's scenes like these that easily make Robert Pattinson and Matt Reeves' version feel like the Batman I've dreamt of come to life.
People need hope. To know someone's out there for them.
Thank you, Owen, you absolute gem. If you guys haven't checked out his channel yet, it'll be in the first link in the description below. Moving down to number 4, we're looking at the best sequel. What movie followed up our origin story the best? What movie was able to take the character and evolve them? In terms of evolution, you might say The Winter Soldier moved Steve Rogers' story forward the most, placed our hero in a modern time, challenging the ethics of the day.
This isn't freedom. This is fear.
Others might say X2 did the same for Logan, explored his past, which we only got flashes of in the first film. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 did the same for Peter, whilst giving us more of what we loved from the first. But to me, the best sequel, one of the best, and one of my personal favourites, is Spider-Man 2. This movie might just be my personal favourite on this list, between the amazing comedic delivery of J.K. Simmons, J. Jonah Jameson.
Are you serious?
Arguably the best superhero theme of all time by Danny Elfman, and action that, to this day, has not been topped. It's hard to look past this as one of the best. Spider-Man 2 doesn't just give us a story that is emblematic of what you'd expect with Spider-Man, a tale of responsibility and so forth. It actually tells a tale that can only be told with this character. Its themes only fit this character, its action can't be replicated by the heroes. It's uniquely Spider-Man in that way. It's why that train fight is just so damn spectacular. Ask yourself, have you ever seen a hero kicked out of a train, on the ground, before launching back towards said train? Have you ever seen a hero narrowly miss a train sticking to the side of it? I don't think so. What this movie does is utilize the character to its fullest potential to tell the best story they possibly can. This movie is just so Spider-Man. Whilst the first movie was about responsibility, here the question Peter faces is what to do with that responsibility. It's about choices. The movie excels here, giving us something truly inspiring, depth to ideas Peter must digest, his life's direction, what and who he values. It's all called into question. The movie excels because it takes our character and pushes him to new limits, not just physically, but emotionally. Since we touched on sequels, I think it's appropriate that we talk about the threequel. Generally, the third film in a franchise should be concluding the story for our hero. There should be a sense of finality to their conflict, their worldview, the lessons they've learned should come full circle here. Some point to Infinity War as a great threequel, it being the culmination of Tony's visions and what these three phases had led to.
My only curse is you.
Others point to Civil War as a great threequel, a movie with a moral quandary on duty, freedom, and security, one that builds on the Winter Soldier to solidify Captain America's stance on freedom and one's own autonomy. But to me, no movie concludes a trilogy, concludes their time as a character, better than Hugh Jackman's killer performance in Logan. Logan is a mature movie, and I'm not talking about the R rating, I'm talking about its content, what it attempts to say, to comment on. Logan serving as the perfect bookend to the Fox X-Men movies. Fuck you, Dark Phoenix. Seeing as it started with him, it only seems fitting to end it with him too. Nerdwriter made a really great video expanding on such an idea, that Logan had to change, become deconstructionist to appear fresh in an age of superhero movies who have since followed. Audiences have grown accustomed to the world-destroying stakes. What Logan opts for is something far more intimate, a movie that instead pulls at the motifs of the genre.
Oh yeah, Charles, we got ourselves an X-Men fan. You do know they're all bullshit, right? I mean, maybe a quarter of it happened, and not like this.
That self-awareness makes Logan the perfect movie to look back on the characters' three movies, and by extension all of the X-Men movies, and comment on where these characters have been and gone, and the romanticized nature of their adventures.
In the real world, people die, and no self-promoting asshole in a fucking leotard can stop it. This is ice cream for bedwetters.
What it results in is a Western swan song for the character, using genres of old to comment on the tired nature of the superhero landscape today. A movie that is much of its own thing as it is a reflection of genre and the past. Now, I feel like we've forgotten about animation. Not 2D, we've already talked about that. 3D. Computer-generated movies. How do they fare up? Well, surprisingly well. We have the charming, hilarious, and shockingly heartfelt Batman tale in the Lego Batman movie, and then there's The Incredibles. Arguably the greatest Pixar movie ever made, it utilizes the medium to tell a tale that can only be done in animation. It holds up a lens to superheroes in a way few others have, but when people think of a groundbreaking animated superhero film, it's hard to look past 2018's Oscar-winning Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse.
Like, what's up, danger?
When people often talk about Into the Spider-Verse, they talk about the groundbreaking leaps in animation, the stylized visuals that change what we considered to be good animation. This focus on style and less on capturing reality now bleeding into other properties. Regardless, I don't think enough is said for the real strength, its story and its characters. Beyond the amazing wallpaper quality visuals, seriously every frame in this movie is gorgeous, beyond all that is a tale of a boy becoming a man and stepping up to the plate of his responsibility. The specifics here aren't important, but what Into the Spider-Verse thrives in is telling a tale where the themes bolster the hero's journey, a tale of courage, doubt, and faith.
That's all it is, Miles. A leap of faith.
Like, what's up, danger? Like, what's up, danger?
We've been gifted plenty of Spider-Man movies over the years, some fantastic and some not so much.
What?
Into the Spider-Verse is easily one of the best. Its detailed character work, stunning visuals, makes this one to remember. Now, this brings us to our lucky last pick on the list. What is the best superhero movie? i.e., what movie focusing on a superhero is the greatest? Look, I'm not going to beat around the bush, I'm just going to cut straight to it. It's The Dark Knight. Of course, there will be some who disagree, that's fine, but this is my list. Now, The Dark Knight is, well, it's The Dark Knight. No movie has really been deconstructed, overanalyzed, praised more than this. What more is there to say? To me, it is undoubtedly the best movie with the subject matter being that of a comic book property, because despite its real-world crime thriller vibe, technically, it's a superhero movie. Is it the best Batman movie? Perhaps not, but is it the best movie with Batman in it? Certainly. Bruce might even be the third most interesting character in this movie, but that might be missing the point. This movie is about themes, ideas. Like a lot of Nolan movies are, these themes reveal the nature of these characters, revealing their values or lack thereof.
Some men just want to watch the world burn.
Where is the line in Batman's no killing rule? How far will the Joker go to push him before he snaps? Can the Joker comment on society's fragility through characters like Dent and ideas like Chaos? In that way, the Joker becomes the perfect opposition to Batman. There's Batman on one end who holds up conventional morality and order, then there's the Joker on the other hand who seeks to abandon it altogether. Harvey Dent exists within the two, being the pawn of these two opposing forces, testing whether or not which ideology can stand to scrutiny. Will Harvey fall like the Joker wants, or will he stand up to the chaos alongside Batman?
Joker killed Gordon. He's gonna kill Rachel. You're the symbol of hope I could never be. Your stand against organized crime is the first legitimate ray of light in Gotham in decades. If anyone saw this, everything would be undone.
Obviously we know how the movie plays out, resulting in Dent snapping, Batman going into hiding, protecting Gotham with the face of a lie. Now in Rises we know how that plays out, but what I want to highlight is just how damn good this movie is. I think people tend to forget how good some of these sequences are. Nolan using his signature cross-cutting between multiple scenes to great effect in the opening heist, culminating in one of the most sinister villain reveals cinema has ever seen. There's obviously the truck scene in which Nolan flipped a real 18-wheeler in the banking district of Gotham. And that's not even mentioning Heath's insane performance in that of the Joker. Literally every scene he is in slaps. He just steals the show. The pencil trick, the tense knife in the mouth, the gala, the interrogation room, the hospital. It's really hard to choose a favourite moment. Heath's Joker isn't just one of the greatest supervillains of all time, but one of the greatest movie villains of all time. Right, now that rounds out our list. Now, there's much more to discuss with every movie I've talked about. If you want a deep dive of sorts of anything I've talked about today, then just let me know in the comments below. Outside of that, I have to thank my Illuminati patrons for keeping the lights on. You guys are the reason this channel still exists. People like Daniel, Julian, Christos, a dude from Krypton, Screenspark, David, Lidge, Draco, Alexis, Lance, Holland, James, William, Rex, Carson, Braden, Jai, Luis, and Sol. You guys are the reason that I get to make these videos, so thank you so much. I also just want to thank everyone else for taking the time to come this far in the video. For those that are aware, the channel is going to be focusing on the X-Men coming up, so I'm really excited to talk about that. With that being said, I will see you guys in the next video. Ciao.